Welcome back to Principles of Engineering. Today we're going to work on designing some trusses. In class originally, we started out looking at this exercise and hand drawing our individual trusses. If you go to the Resources tab on our page, what you will find is the truss design document. I recommend you download that so it's a little easier to follow and open that up. You'll need to use a lab laptop so you have Solidworks available to you. So a couple things we're looking at here, and let me get rid of There we go. Let me get rid of some of that stuff that's on here. First thing we're looking at is we have truss number 1 and truss number 2. Truss number 1 is a simple triangle. It's 3.25 tall by 6.5 wide. Really an easy triangle to draw. Truss 2, again, is 6.5 wide and 3.25 tall, as you can see where my cursor is flashing for the dimensions. We're going to want to make these trusses out of individual pieces, so we're not going to use a triangle in SolidWorks. So let's start out with the very first truss that's 6.25. So you'll see that I have SolidWorks loaded up already. So I'm going to start a new file. We'll make a part using the Westwood Engineering Profile. And let's start a sketch. Doesn't really matter what plane we sketch in, but we want to keep it in a single plane. I'm going to draw my truss as a series of individual sticks. The bottom plate I always want to be solid so that it's strong. And you'll see I just pop up here, down, and I'm going to apply some dimensions of 45 degrees between one angle, and because I've made that horizontal, it helps to define the overall triangle. This will be 6.5, and then my height here is going to be 3.25. Now I've got a fully defined triangle, and I'll go ahead and exit that sketch. Now we're going to use the Weldment Profile. If you loaded the Westwood Engineering default setup, you're going to get this little bar over here to the side. And this is the weldment bar. We use this quite a bit in aerospace engineering, and we're going to introduce the idea of a weldment. And a weldment is nothing more than a profile that I select to follow a path. And I'm going to do this in a few steps to make structurally the strongest truss for you. So as we start out, I'm going to go ahead and take my structural member and just pick this structural member. And what it asks me is, what structural member do I want to have? There's some ANSI and ISO standards, and then in your default folder, you're going to find a custom. Under custom, go ahead and choose solid, and we will use the 0.25 by 1 or 0.125 solid member. You can start a new group if you want, but I'm just going to click on the bottom plate here. And what you'll see is it puts the member that I just described in there, but you'll notice it's oriented wrong. So the first thing I want to do is change the alignment on this. Come down here to the Alignment tab, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. Now it only rotates positive, you can't rotate it negative, but I rotate it first, and now I'm going to locate the profile. So as I zoom in here, you're going to see the profile itself has got several different places along it where you can locate each one of the dots. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Locate Profile, and I'm going to put this so it sits right there. There I've got my member located. Now I've added that single truss. I'm going to go ahead, or that single piece of wood, I'm going to go ahead and add the same piece, and it's going to default to what my prior selection was, to my two adjoining members. I'm going to choose a mitered connection here. So I'll apply that corner connection, and you'll see it miters it at the top. Now you see I got an ugly truss, and I forgot to rotate it. So we'll go back and edit that, and I'm going to go ahead and do my rotation, 90 degrees again, and select my locate on it. And you'll see again, I want this to be the top member in my truss. So remember, we want that size to be exact. And accept it. So now I got a truss, looks about right, but a little ugly there on the end. So let's go ahead and trim this up. To trim it, we're going to use the trim feature. And you'll see I can do this little button here that says Trim Extend as I hover over it. I'm going to choose Trim Extend, and I can either trim bodies to bodies, or I can trim faces to faces. So we'll do both. I'm going to trim these two outside bodies. And what I'm going to do here, actually I'm going to trim this body my upper two elements, so I'm going to select both of those. They're blue. So those are the bodies I'm going to cut, and I'm going to trim it to a face. And the first face that I'm going to trim is to the bottom right here. You'll see the preview where it's going to cut it off, and that looks about like what I want to do. So I got that first cut, but that's not really what I wanted to do. I really wanted to trim it to the top of the face, so let me clear that and put it in as the top face here. So I'm going to trim to that body right there. That looks a little better. Pretty close. Now I want to trim off this little end nubbin here, so let's go ahead and trim that off also. So I'll do another trim, except I'm going to trim this body, and my two faces that I'm going to use are here and here, and you'll see it takes it away. So now I've got my truss trimmed up and ready to go. This is your completed truss and your completed part. So we're going to go ahead and go File, Save, navigate to your engineering folder, your particular hour, and save your truss in here. This is truss 1. That's all there is to truss 1. We've got the truss made now. If you notice and look up here, you've got a cut list items, and you'll see that I've got 2 different members to cut. So what it did when I made this solid body is it also created my cut list for me. Kind of a neat thing, and I'll show you why here in the next video. That's it. Thanks for